So, who recognizes this dude from back in the 80s? Yeah, who's it? Glenn Flake. Yeah, he's got cool hair, and he skis pretty well still. He's still at it, too, which is kind of crazy. So, um, and that's me in Verbier last year, styling, profiling with Chris Tabb. So, yeah, me and Matt Housley, do you want to stand up real quick? So, we wrote a very unpopular book on data engineering. Nobody reads it. It sucks terribly. Don't bother. And yeah, recovering data scientist, you can read all that shit up there. So I climb, I used to snowboard a ton. I'll get into that in a bit. I don't anymore, but I started snowboarding back in the late 80s when I was a kid. So anyway, not that that's interesting. Bunny Hill basics, blues, black diamonds, backcountry. We already talked about all this stuff here. Terms people are familiar with here. These are going to be very important as we go through the talk today. So I'm actually going to sit in, what chair should I sit in? This one? Okay. These are for the panels later on. I guess are we doing like a fireside chat later with all these? Was that the idea? Okay. With everybody? They just sit up here? Okay, that's how that works. Hope you heard Chris. Yeah, so why are we talking about data modeling now? Who's actually heard of data modeling and knows about it? No, nobody's heard of it? Okay. We'll get into what it is. I'm just kidding. Actually, I will get into what it is in a bit. But yeah, why is this important now? I think the rise of AI is giving data a new look. Who's heard of AI before? It's a new thing. It just came out in 2022 in November. I'm kidding. And so that's why we're talking about it. But no, what it means is corporate data sets are getting a second look, right? So I think for the longest time we sort of took it for granted, like analytics is just going to be okay. We can sort of just do analytics and kind of hobble by like we have. Who feels like they're doing analytics awesome right now? Awful? Who's doing it? Who's doing it awful? On the other end of things. There's more people doing that. Who feels like they're kind of like doing, they're just skating by, like it's okay, you're able to make some sort of a decision or something resembling a decision. Cool. So AI means that we're going to basically accelerate that for good or for worse. So we can either do like smart things more quickly or dumb things more quickly. I think data modeling is going to play an important role in this. What else have I written up here? Yeah, corporate data sets are overwhelmingly a mess. Who feels like their corporate data sets are amazing and awesome? And okay, you? Why do you feel that way? Good for you. All right. Because they're huge? Wait, so yours is good or bad? It depends? I like your answer. Cool. Yeah, so anyway, that's the reality of it, right? And I also feel like the pendulum is swinging back to making data modeling cool again. I think that in the modern data stack era, which apparently died 2 Sundays ago or something like that, when Tristan Handy wrote his Modern Data Stack, Is It Still Useful article. Who's heard of the modern data stack, just to kind of get a sense of who feels like that term needs to go away? Who feels like we need to keep that term around for another 10 years? John, what the fuck? You already had it both times, okay? Both, okay. We can talk about that later. What's that? So it's like one of those Friday the 13th movies where you're on like the 13th movie and Jason's still alive even though he got like chopped up in a blender, and I don't know how that happens. Yeah, sorry. Good mental image, by the way. Yeah, so anyway, data modeling is now cool again. I keep seeing a lot of discussions about it, like the ones I do. Might be self-selecting bias, but here we are, data modeling, we're back. Probably for another 10 years before it goes away. Well, okay, so I think also, I'll talk about this in a bit, but I think AI actually has a chance to change how we do data modeling, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah, so anyway, grades for skiing. This is my local mountain snowbird in Utah. So I live in Utah. We have about 9 Verbiers within about 20 minutes of my house. So people ask why I didn't bring my snowboard. 1, I'm going to Saudi Arabia next week, and 2, that would really suck to lug that thing around. But then 2, it's like I have a lot of mountains there. So, but yeah, so this is kind of cool. So you can see like different terrain, your greens, your blues, your double blacks, and a lot of backcountry there. That is really perilous right now because it's avalanche season. So it's actually a cozy chair. Do you mind if I just sit down like this? I kind of like it. Okay. I feel like a North Korean dictator, like addressing people. So, what's that? You have to, or bad things happen. So, thank you. Didn't even say anything. It's great. So we're going to talk about Bunny Hill basics. So I think the first thing we're going to start off is what's a data model, and then what data modeling is not, and then something I like to call learning to see. So if you've worked in lean or manufacturing, there's this notion of learning to see the business, see things, see you. But what's a data model, right? So let's talk about this for a bit. What do you think a data model is? We'll spend about 1 minute on this. 2, actually. Go for it. Who wants to talk about that? No one? Remember, I have grand powers here. Yes, Debbie. So a representation of real world. Yeah, energy concepts. Yep, exactly. Yeah. Who else? I think I like that one. Nobody else knows, cares. Okay. Wait till after the show. Just kidding. Or coffee, fine, whatever. Okay, so, and I don't have it in front of me, so I have to actually turn here and turn around. So I'll just actually talk this way the whole time. So this is from William Kent. This is from 1978 in a book called Data and Reality. Who's heard of this book? It's really good. This was one of the first attempts of an author to really try and capture how we would maybe philosophically or realistically, those two are maybe opposing forces, represent data in a computer system, right? So back in the 70s, computers were still largely not being used in corporations. They're starting to use them. And people were wondering, okay, so like, what does it mean to represent reality in a computer, right? This is a new concept. I would still say we're still struggling with this many years later, but here we are. Yeah, so I'll let you read that. But notice even what this didn't cover back in the day. It's not like we're talking about, this is 1978. Edgar Cod came out with this paper about the relational data bank in 1970. And it didn't talk about data modeling is relational data modeling, right? It wasn't about fitting everything into normalization. It didn't talk about, I see some people say, oh, data modeling is the use of set theory and first order predicate logic, right? I sometimes see definitions like this, but I like what he said here. You're trying to not model reality. But the way information about reality is processed by people, right? And then data models are techniques for representing information, at the same time significantly structured and simplistic as to fit into a computer, right? And now Steve Hoberman, he has this definition here, right? I'll let you read that. So again, this came out back in, 2010, I think, when he published this book. Steve kind of reframes his definitions of data modeling every few years, but notice the words like wayfinding tool, precise. So this is how Steve thinks about it, right? In a podcast I did with him last month, he talked about how he feels data models need to precisely represent your organization's reality, whatever that happens to be. I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Right? But Steve's. I think I respect Steve probably more than almost anybody else in the data industry. I think he's, especially when it comes to data modeling, he was one of the OGs of data modeling. I think, puts a lot more thought into it than probably most people on the planet. But that doesn't say much because most people on the planet put no thought into data modeling. So, so there you are. I think. Let me see here. This is my definition. I hate having to turn around and look at this. So a data model organizes and standardizes data in a structured representation to enable and guide human and machine behavior, inform decision making, and facilitates actions, right? So this is a bit different. My definition, it's very inclusive, right? Inclusivity is a big thing these days. And I wanted to make sure that machines and AI have a fair seat at the table. That's kind of a joke. But the reality is we're not just modeling data for human consumption. In fact, I can make a very strong argument that we never did, right? You were modeling data to put into a computer. And in that sense, it sort of represented, the concepts, the representations of your organization. But at the end of the day, applications just sort of do their thing. Code, does its thing. Analytics, I would argue, is the only area where humans are consuming data for human consumption, for human decision making. In most cases, you're talking about modeling data for automations. And now with the rise of generative AI, for example, this throws an entirely new loop into things where now computers are just able to make data on their own without human intervention, right? This throws an entirely different thing that we weren't thinking about back when Steve Hoberman and William Kent were thinking about data modeling. So this is a twist. And it's expected, what, by 2025, like 95% of the data on the internet is going to be synthetically generated. Who cares about fake information, by the way, or misinformation, just out of curiosity? Who doesn't give a shit about this? Like, same people are like, I mean, I think we're about to enter an interesting era where we might be in sort of a hall of mirrors world where if you thought like the 2016 election in America was weird, just wait, that's going to look really tame, and you'll miss those days. Anyway, get off topic here. Welcome to Joe's show at 9 in the morning. What did I write here? So, what data modeling is not. So I wrote an article about this a few weeks ago. Data modeling, I was talking with Gordon Wong, who I did a podcast with actually last weekend. We were talking about, I don't know, stuff. But he always pings me, and I was asking him about data modeling, what he thinks it is, and what it's not. And he said, well, I don't think it needs to be perfect, right? And so who feels their data models are perfect? Whoever strives for perfection here, who likes to be perfect? Well, everyone likes to be perfect. But how often do you feel the data in your organization it perfectly represents what's happening in an organization, right? So how do you deal with this actually? Well, you do, or? What's that? Yeah. You're talking like the party role model, or? Yeah, that's a conceptual, yeah. Yeah. But we can all agree on a certain set of premises for our business, right? Like these are the rules, these are the concepts, these are the vocabulary, the information flows, right? Because I don't know how the hell you'd run a company if you didn't have at least some version of a shared understanding. That would be very weird. That would actually be like a lot of companies. So, yeah, so what else do we write here? Perfect, it's not perfect. It's not just an approach either. So sometimes when I ask people what is data modeling, they'll say, oh, it's Kimball. I'll be like, that's cool. That's a version of doing data modeling, but I don't think that encapsulates data modeling as a practice or that kind of thing. Same thing with the COD crowd, right, or Data Vault or whatever. So everyone has their approach, and I'll get into why this is actually an interesting conversation on its own, and a very boring one at the same time. So only for enterprises, right? So I feel like data modeling is one of these things where it actually should start when you're actually starting your initiative, whether it's a company, a new project, whatever. Doing it up front means you're going to pay a lot less down the road in terms of tech, data, and organizational debt. And then only physical data modeling. So I think that in the last 10 years of the modern data stack, or 12 years, we've sort of gotten away from the notions of, we'll get into this in a bit, conceptual modeling, logical modeling, right? It's all about physical. Like how much data can I cram into a columnar store, for example, right? How much data can I cram into a graph database? And then figuring that because of the physical limitations or possibilities of these systems, that's data modeling, right? So with the modern data stack era, for example, one big table became very popular. Who's heard of one big table? Yeah, so it's like throw all your data into one big table, like it says. It's pretty cool. And then that was data modeling, right? And why would you do that? Well, the theory is that joins are bad, and column stores can't do joins, or it's performantly bad. Therefore, if you just throw all of your data into one big table, that'll solve all your problems, and you'll be off to a better place in life. That idea, I do too. You must clap now. Thank you. Okay, so don't just jump straight into technical details of data modeling. I would say, sorry if you don't like that picture. You're at SKID, by the way. It's going to get a lot worse from here. Chris Tabb's talk, Jesus Christ, I mean, it's going to be terrible. So just a lot of hedonic behavior there. So But what I often see is people jump straight into the technical details and ignore sort of the thought process behind data modeling, right? So I always make a quip that data is a thinking person's sport. This is sort of what separates it from application development. Not that application developers don't think, but data requires you to think about the entire enterprise. And I was asking Bill Inman actually once, like, what's the difference between, like, sort of, when did he start seeing application development and data and analytics? Everyone's staring at the picture. I know, it's awesome. Like, what can I see in that? There's not a lot there, by the way. But yeah, Bill, I asked him one time, like, when did things start diverging? When did we get away from, when did analytics kind of go off on its own? And he said, really, when people had to start thinking about the enterprise, right, in a holistic way. This is it's completely different than application development. And so that's really why I say data is a thinking person's sport. But what's happened over time is that I think because of practices like Agile, or cults like Agile, I would rather call it, we've more drifted into thinking that we can cram thoughtful work into 2-week sprints, which is total bullshit, right? It's really difficult to think when you're thinking in terms of features and not thinking in terms of the big picture. And so, but that's the reality of it, right? Agile, by the way, was actually written at, the Agile Manifesto was written at that ski resort Snowbird back in 2001, in February, actually. So coming up on the anniversary, I think, 23rd anniversary. So, but it started with good intentions. We get to create a manifesto here. Why don't we do it? Let's create a new one. It'd be fun. Then 23 years later, it'll become a cult that we're very disappointed in, and that's what will happen. So, all right. Let's talk about, wait, what happened here? So learn to see. This is another one. So I think you need to really learn to get perspective on the business and just learn to see, the workflows, the concepts, the overarching processes of your business. And I'll get back into this, but this is the Bunny Hill stuff, right? Like, notice I didn't say you need to jump straight into learning Data Vault or learning into Kimball. Excuse you, Chris. You're such a silent sneezer. I wasn't convinced you sneezed. Okay, thanks. So anyway, yeah, I think learning to see is super critical. And if you wear cool glasses like that, that would really help you. In fact, you have to wear those to learn to see. So blues. So we're going to talk about conceptual, logical, physical data modeling, ingredients of data models, and then applying data modeling to your domain. Who recognizes that image, actually? That there was an 80s movie called Better Off Dead. Anyway, that was also filmed up at Snowbird. So it's about this high school guy who wants to win the heart of this lovely woman, but he can only do that by skiing this thing called the K-12, which will kill you. But I've skied it, and it's actually pretty easy. But anyway, that's the guy from Revenge of the Nerds on the right there, who plays Booger. Pretty cool character. But anyway. So yeah, conceptual, logical, and physical data modeling. So conceptual modeling is really, again, that's the learning to see part, learning to see the representations of your business, the objects, the entities, the ideas, the flows, and whatnot. Logical is about kind of translating that into what will become the physical model, right? So how does this physical modeling is the other extreme where you're just trying to fit the data into your data source, the system, trying to optimize it for performance and so forth. And logical really is that so middle of the road mapping there. Who's familiar with these terms here? It's right. So. And due to shortness of time here, because I like to blab. Can I go over, Chris, by a few minutes? No? Okay, great. I'll rush through. That's that. So ingredients, right? You have entities, attributes, relationships. I also put time here, but these are, there's a lot more ingredients. But entities, these are maybe things. These are objects, all right? So it's like you're all people, I think. We're at a resort. We're at a conference, right? These are the nouns of things. We might have attributes. That skier's first and last name. And that movie, Better Off Dead, the guy's name was Lane Meyer. We're at Verbier. We're at a conference called SKID, right? If you were to think of these as fields in a database with little entries there, if you had a conference name, it would be SKID, and then, then relationships, right? So Lane Meyer SKID is a K-12. You are attending SKID. And time's an interesting one too. I think we tend to look at data models as just how objects relate to each other, but in the real world, things happen over time. There's a certain temporality to things. And so what we're talking about is you attended this talk in the morning. You might attend it in the afternoon. You might be taking a nap in the afternoon during Chris's talk. at the conference, in this conference room. You might ski in the afternoon. You might go vape and drink opera beers at 4:20. I don't know. These are relationships, right? So, not saying you have to. You can vape other stuff, though, if you want to, just saying. And then, applying data modeling to your domain. So back at your lame corporate job, you can ask questions like, what exactly do you do here? And this will help you start applying the learning to see to the data modeling. You can observe your business processes, concepts, rules, and workflows, and start mapping this out, right? These are the next steps. Once you've learned to see, once you understand what data modeling is and is not, the bunny hills, now you're progressing to this. Now you're starting to apply that insight to your business itself. Let's talk about black diamonds, right? So we're talking about modeling techniques for different use cases. Getting value. You're going to hear a lot of talks today about getting value, and maybe also why value is not great. Just guys pointing at Soul. Right. So the way I view data modeling techniques are really across a spectrum of practices, right? I try not to fixate too much on analytics. I know this is an analytical crowd, but you got to realize there's a whole world outside of our tiny bubble of analysis. There's applications, right? So it's like, in this case, applications, OLTP, relational, documents, streaming. This is an area I think deserves a lot of attention, which is we're going to talk about the live data stack, maybe an idea that Matt and I came up with a few years ago, right? I think this is sort of the next generation of data modeling. These are transactional systems. Analytics, right? You got your dimensionals, your data vaults, your graphs, your just a bunch of tables. You got your one big table, which I also call WTF, wide, tall, and full. You also have your your machine learning and AI. You got your classical ML, you got your generative AI, a bunch of other techniques in ML and AI. Who works in ML and AI by any chance? Who knows these stuff? Great, cool. For the rest of you, this is the future. And this is going to tie into something that I'm going to talk about in a second, which is that all these are actually going to be blending together soon. And this allows you to get data from data modeling, right? So I don't know why I picked that picture, because I like their hair. But yeah, so applying these techniques consciously and intentionally throughout the data lifecycle allows you to get value from your data models. I would say if you sort of just fixate on one of these techniques at the expense of all the others for the situation you depend upon, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you won't get value. Your life will be quite miserable. And Backcountry Bravado. So this is Corbett's Cooler in Jackson Hole. So I grew up skiing at Jackson, and I've actually done this one. I did this when I was a kid. Sometimes it gets more snowed over, but anyway, it's steep. It's like the legendary chute in Jackson. So if you're who's skied in Jackson Hole before? It's dope. You got to go check it out, and you got to go do this one. It's really fun. So you just go down a chute, and that's about it. So we're going to talk about mixed model arts and thinking holistically there. So mixed mogul arts, this is the combination of all the techniques I just described, right? So the way I think data modeling is going to be going is it's not just about one technique. It's about knowing the various techniques across the data lifecycle, across different applications. And why is this important? Because there's going to be a lot more tighter coupling between applications, data, AI, and feedback loops. The world we're entering is in the world of data products, right? Which is a nice buzzword, but at the same time, this is where it's all going. The notion of us focusing on analytical use cases, us focusing on transactional only and so forth. I think in the next world, we're going to have to be cognizant of all of these things. I actually have this joke called model ops, sort of like DevOps, but like the notion is all of us will be responsible for modeling across the life cycle as we start making data products. This is sort of the natural conclusion of it. Wrapping up, learn to see, start small, master techniques, mixed mogul arts. This will be us after SKID. That's Chris on the right, or the left there. Not the right, could be Chris, I guess. And I just want to give a shout out to Chris Tab and the Leak crew too. This is the second SKID. I met Chris because he was trolling me on LinkedIn one day. And then I invited him onto my podcast because he was commenting a lot. And it was really funny. And I was like, it would be better if I just bring him on. So there's nothing to lose. Either he'll look dumb or great. And we ended up becoming best friends, right? So, and then here we are. I remember he was talking about, we were walking around London. He's like, wouldn't it be cool if we do something in Verbier? And I was like, I don't know. That'd be cool. But it's cool seeing this a second year, right? So, it's great to see everybody here. And there'll be a lot of good talks. I hit it on time. That's me. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can clicky on that QR code. I'll give you a second there. And I got another surprise for you. You all must clap now. I'm kidding. And then y'all got that? Good. So then I have another, I'm launching my new book, Practical Data Modeling, on practicaldatamodeling.substack.com. And it's the physical version is going to be released on my new publishing company called NerdHerd. So expect more out of that. But yeah, start a new publishing company. If you have an idea for a data book, come talk to me. I'd love to talk. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to John Couttet.